I don't think there's anything fundamentally different. In fact, all the teachers here who are teaching lead classes also teach classes that are not. I do think that you can be a more successful lead teacher if you have an inkling, a tendency toward curiosity, and you like mixing things up, experimenting, and taking risks in the classes.
I think lead teachers, ideally, can act more like coaches or instructors and help focus people as they work on group projects, and help people see how they can contribute to project-based learning in that way.
Well, the idea behind LEAD is that students are a little more free to explore their education as they want to, and they're more free to choose the types of projects that they display their knowledge with. It's usually a little bit less structured as a course. Yeah, so that's the idea. So I think that teachers are encouraged to do less testing and textbook work and traditional assessments, and they're encouraged to be more creative with the types of assessments they allow students to do.
I was always doing projects, or what I thought were projects, because for me it helped showcase the best of what students could show me in a way that a test couldn't, and it helped show me the whole student. But what I learned was that I needed to start with the project and weave in my curriculum throughout to help students to understand it and learn it. So for me, there was less that I had to change, but it was more reorganizing the order, and then I looked at how to add in technology and make other things more fun.
Well, it's something I struggled with this year, because I'm very used to being a text-based teacher that presents a book, we all read it, we go through it, we analyze it, we dissect it. So trying to create projects that would engage students and allow them to kind of direct their own experience was definitely a challenge. And I think there were a few successes, but it's definitely something that I'm going to be reflecting on and working over the summer on.
I was fortunate in that all of the lead classes that I have taught, I did not teach previously. So I was making a lot of the curriculum new to begin with and didn't do a lot of it. So I didn't adjust anything, but I did actively think about making the curriculum differently than I would for a regular non-lead class.
I think over time, if teachers in the LEAD program are doing these types of lessons consistently, then yes, we are producing a different type of student for sure. And I feel strongly that it is positive, and the feedback I get from kids who've done LEAD, who've gone on to college, is quite positive, that they have a type of agency that kids don't often have. LEAD kids seem more self-aware of their learning. They seem to go into classes thinking about what they need to do and how they're going to show their learning and how they're going to connect with the material. Whereas I think kids outside of LEAD sometimes go through high school and feel sort of almost as if they're passive learners. It's just, I'm going to do what they tell me to do. I'm going to get a good grade on the exact assignment and just sort of wait for it to come to them. So that agency and that desire to go to college and find the pathway that you want and choose the classes you want, I think we really inspire that in kids.
Well, on average, I'd say there is a difference, but if you looked at a particular specific lead student and a specific non-lead student, you might not be able to tell anything different. But I think there is a tendency among lead students to be more gregarious, more willing to share their thoughts and opinions and ideas. And I also think that there tends to be a desire to pursue their own interests wherever those interests may take them. And I think that fits well because it's fun to see students put their own spin on projects and make them personal for themselves.
I find that my lead students are people who know what they want and they seek it out, and that they also have a desire to kind of steer their own education in a direction, and that they're not afraid to do so, and they're not afraid to dive deep when they're really passionate about something. And I don't necessarily always see that outside of the pathway.
I mean, I like the personalities. I like that students are able to kind of reflect on who they are and what matters to them. And I think it can be a little dangerous at times. I feel like sometimes we get a little too much freedom, but also I love when students take something and they're like, I'm gonna do this thing, and it's not something that I would ever, like I don't know how to assign that as a project. They take it and they make something even greater out of it, and that's what attracted me to LEAD in the first place. Is hearing about some of the things that Mr. Crochet and Mrs. Rothstein were doing, and what kids did with that freedom. And so I think those kids that really take that initiative and run with it are. It's just a joy.
I love our ability to slow down and to go deeper and to explore history more creatively. I also teach AP US history, and I adore that because we get to go into so much history and cover so much. But with LEAD, we're able to step back and look at the music of the time period. We're able to look at the artwork of the time period and tell stories that are a little bit more in depth and sort of slow down and focus on the storytelling of the time period and not just as much about coverage of the content. So I just love that I can come into a LEAD class and play a YouTube video about, like today, Jimi Hendrix playing the national anthem on his electric guitar in 1969, and that can be part of the lesson, and in a lot of other types of classes, there just isn't time for that type of thing.
It's why I've been there for all the 7 years and even before. I love that students really do feel like a community and a family, and that we're connected, and they say that they miss it when they leave, and even our graduates still stay connected with each other and with us. It just feels like a lot more of a community than I've ever experienced as a teacher. And I know what's happening not just in my class, but in all of the other classes, even outside of my grade level. And for me, that's really powerful to really feel like I understand the breadth of what students are getting within it.
Well, we're trying to coordinate more between the classes. So I think we need to grow it. I think we need, to make sure that we have the numbers of students, get it up to 90 or so, I think would be ideal. The more coordination we LEAD teachers can do and the more we can work together on projects, I think a lot can happen with that. I am happy to say that we have big plans for that. So next year, Ms. Peters and Mr. DW and I are all going to be doing one common final project, the music project that I started this year. We're going to do all together next year. So I think that's great. I think we need more events so that LEAD kids can socialize together. That's always positive. I think one of the best things about LEAD is that kids take a lot of classes together during their 4 years. So it creates a cultural group. It creates bonds between students that are deeper than most kids get because they're taking classes across 2,000 kids. I think that we are on a path of improvement in LEAD, and I think we're in the right direction.
I would love if more people outside of our LEAD students and families really understood what we did, and I think once they understand it, would really appreciate it and promote it better. I don't know that as a pathway what we're doing necessarily we need to change, but I do envision that we probably could do a better job of messaging outward and showcasing what we're doing for a wider audience so that messages are clear and that there isn't a mixed message of who belongs in the pathway and who it's right for. And I think that we're doing some amazing work, but maybe we need to give ourselves a little more credit and showcase it.
Well, the thing that I would love to see is, in a lot of ways, it feels like currently LEAD is take all the same classes, and then for each class we're gonna LEADify it a little bit. We're gonna change it to make it fit the LEAD model. And I am looking forward to and hoping for a day when we look at it from the opposite way, and rather than saying, okay, these are the required classes that are exactly the same as the required classes in the rest of the school, I would like to see a place where we say, okay, these are the moments, these are the experiences, these are the challenges we want you to encounter and to overcome, and we'll figure out how to make them fit with the appropriate subject areas later. So as a lot of the curriculum in public education is driven by the subject, I would like to see the reverse happen. And I think LEAD has talked about that in some ways, and we've looked for opportunities to do that, but we still have a lot of challenges in making something like that happen. It feels like currently LEAD is take all the same classes, and then for each class we're going to LEADify it a little bit. We're going to change it to make it fit the LEAD model. And I am looking forward to and hoping for a day when we look at it from the opposite way, and rather than saying, okay, these are the required classes that are exactly the same as the required classes in the rest of the school, I would like to see a place where we say, okay, these are the moments, these are the experiences, these are the challenges we want you to encounter and to overcome, and we'll figure out how to make them fit with the appropriate subject areas later. So as a lot of the curriculum in public education is driven by the subject, I would like to see the reverse happen. And I think LEAD has talked about that in some ways, and we've looked for opportunities to do that, but we still have a lot of challenges in making something like that happen.
I hope that we have people like knocking down the doors, and that we're busting at the seams, and we have so many people that want to be in it that we end up having to grow and double or triple in number of teachers that are a part of it and how many classes we can offer. And I would love if we can dream a little bit bigger about what we do with the 3 periods of students that we have. I would love if we have big experiential trips that we do each year that become signature experiences for students after this, beyond what they're doing, so for community building, so beyond the classroom, as well as particular signature units that happen at each grade level, and that teachers really start to take ownership of that and connect with students and each other. I hope that we continue to have staff that stay with the grade level that they have, so they can continue to improve and grow and feel really connected.
I would really like to see it paired with a good film media class, or even beyond that, a multimedia class where kids really learn the skills of filmmaking, web design, graphic design, and also and do some time with newspapers, learn how to write copy for newsprint, and really develop those sets of skills so that they already have them completely when they come into my U.S. history class. I would love it if they had a lab directly, like maybe their freshman year they take a multimedia class, and then for the rest of their time at LEAD, like when they get an assignment in my class, they can then have access to that lab or some sort of multimedia equipment and all that, and that they're all trained so that they can jump right into making all sorts of projects. So yeah, I'm just really looking to lift the caliber of the films that we produce in LEAD, the posters we make, the presentations we do, and yeah, so I'm just very excited about that.
I do. And I would also say that, you know, like, that's a beautiful thing. That's an awesome gift. And it's also a burden and a responsibility as well. Because, you know, that was my biggest challenge, is like when I'm doing traditional style teaching, you know, and it's really clear, we're going to read this book, you're going to understand it, and then we're going to, you know, write an essay that's this style and this style, versus like, you know, I want you to create a project in your own rules and your all that, and figure out how you want to be evaluated on that, all that stuff. That's difficult. So I think, you know, the freedom is wonderful, but it's also a responsibility.
Yes. I do think that I have more freedom being a lead teacher in the sense that I am supported by other teachers who I know are also helping students learn using the same rubrics and supporting us using the same verbiage or vocabulary. And so because of that, I think that it helps free up some of my time, because I don't have to go over something, they've all already seen it before, they understand the procedures, and it allows me to then have a little bit more freedom. And I think because of that, I know that students are well supported. I think that there are certain things that maybe we don't focus on or don't do that might happen in the traditional pathway, but it isn't that students have a lack of anything at the end. If anything, they've just gone deeper in a different direction. But I think in the end, they're leaving with a skill set that is extremely valuable, the soft skills that we talk about a lot. And I think that there are students that will do really well outside of high school, out in the community, connecting with people, and they're able to get their ideas across in a way that I feel like we've really prepared them for. And I look forward to seeing what they do.
Definitely. With respect to content and what we cover in class, there's a lot of freedom. There really is. And essentially, LEAD is based on the model that there's nobody who's forcing me to cover any kind of specific curriculum. Whereas if you teach AP, you must cover everything that's on the test. That's your commitment, and it gives you a massive amount of curriculum to cover. But LEAD doesn't have that. And so the idea is that we're encouraged to let students guide where they would like to deepen their learning. That's the vision, and I love that about it.
The short answer is yes. I guess the longer answer is also yes, but I think it's a freedom that comes with a price, like all freedoms. So I think there is more of a freedom in what are you going to do on a day-to-day basis in your class. But I also think there are some costs to that freedom, and you have to think about the way that you plan differently, and you don't, it's not as easy to make sure you cover all of the essential information. You have to be a little more strategic. If your day-to-day plan changes, that you still have to make sure that you are adequately addressing everything that the class needs to or should address.